Hey there, so in this video we're gonna learn about the Android UI fundamentals. So this is the part 2 of this series. So let's learn about constraint layout. Let's see how it is working, why the constraints are very important if you want to create dynamic applications, dynamic UI. So first and foremost, let me give you an example. For example, the sun. We have the sun in our galaxy, right? This sun is at the center of all those planets. We've got one planet here, another one here, another one here, and here. They are all around the sun. So what's going on here? So what is the force that keeps all these planets at a specific distance from the sun? So that force is actually the same as the force that we have on Earth. So on planet Earth, for example, let's assume this is the planet Earth. If you drop an object, then it's gonna fall, right? By what force? By the force of the gravity. So the force of the gravity is going to keep all of us down. So if an object falls and there are no other forces to prevent that object to fall, then it's just gonna fall. The gravity, the force of the gravity is going to just keep everything on the ground. So that is the same force that keeps all these planets around the sun. So now you might ask that, okay, how it is related to constraint layout? Well, the constraint layout is actually the same. All these planets have a connection or a constraint to the sun, okay? So that's why they are at a specific distance around the sun, and we can just see them at a position that is fixed. So let me give you another example. When I do rock climbing 3 times a week, here I am, I want to just rock to the top, okay? So how can I do that? I have to create a connection to the rocks that are in front of me, okay? Otherwise, I cannot climb to the top. So there should be a connection here. I have to grab the rocks, I have to just move to the top, I have to bring my legs up, and there are some other variables here that will help me to just go up, okay? So this connection is very important. If there is no connection here, then there will be no position for our planets, and in case of the rock climbing, I might fall if there is no connection. If I don't create a connection to the rocks, then I might fall. So let's go back to Android Studio, and then I'm going to explain to you how to create more dynamic layout. So go ahead and open the Android UI project, and then let's switch to the design view here. And if you want to, you can zoom in a little bit in order to see the layout better. So here we have the button. Now I want to add 2 more buttons to my layout, and I want to center these 2 buttons horizontally and vertically. How can I do that? So from the palette section, just drag 2 buttons here, another one here, okay? So because there are no constraints, these 2 buttons might jump to the top left corner of the layout, because if you don't create the connections, the default position will be here, top left corner, okay? So now I have this button, the right one and the left one. So I'm gonna change the text of these buttons because I want to refer to them as I'm teaching you this concept. So the left button and the right button. Okay, so just select the right button. First, we're gonna learn how to position or how to center this button vertically in the layout. In order to do that, we need to create a connection from the top edge of this button. Look at this little circle here, that is an empty circle. Create a connection to the top edge of the parent. And then let's create a connection to the bottom edge of the parent. So just drag this little circle here that we have at the bottom edge of this button and just drag it to the bottom edge of this parent, okay? So now it has to satisfy the connection to the top and the connection to the bottom. So that's why it is now centered vertically in the layout, okay? So you can think of this button as a people pleaser person that has to please everyone that it is told to. Okay, it has to please the connection to the top, the edge of the screen. It has to please the connection to the bottom. Okay, so this button still needs a constraint, because if you just switch to the text tab, and you can see this button here that we have, the right button, if you hover over this squiggly line, it says this view is not constrained horizontally. At runtime, it will jump to the left unless you add a horizontal constraint, okay? So we only added the vertical constraints. There is no constraint horizontally here. So how can I solve this problem? I can simply create a connection from the right edge of this button to the right edge of this layout. And now the connections are satisfied, there are no errors, and at runtime, this button will always be at this specific position that we have here. So now we have this left button. So there is a challenge for you here. Pause the video. Try to do the same thing that we did for this right button. Just go ahead and center this left button vertically and then create a connection from the left edge of this button to the left edge of the screen. So give this challenge your best shot and then continue watching this video. Okay, hopefully you could successfully add the constraints here for this left button. But I can just create a connection to the bottom. It's really simple. I haven't seen a simple layout like this before, because in the past we had to use a lot of complicated layouts, a linear layout, relative layout, and then there would be a lot of child-parent relationships. And you can see that inside the component tree, it's very simple. We only have the constraint layout and these other buttons. But if I wanted to use the traditional way of designing the layout like this, I had to create a very complicated layout, and that's not good. Okay, so now we have the vertical constraints. Let's add a horizontal constraint to the left. So now these connections are created. But this doesn't solve my problem. What is my problem? Well, the problem is that I want this left button and this right button, both of them to be centered horizontally. How can I do that? So in order to solve this problem, I can create a connection from the right edge of this left button to the left edge of this right button. And then let's create a connection. So just select this right button and then create a connection from the left edge of this right button to the right edge of this left button. So here you can see that it's kind of actually difficult to see the connections, and you might actually get confused a little bit. So in order to solve this problem, Android Studio has something called a blueprint. And here you can see that if you hover over this icon, it says select design surface. If you click on it, we have the design, we have the blueprint, we have the design plus blueprint. So the blueprint is very helpful if you want to create the connections and see them and see how they are connected together. It's very simple. It's going to simplify the process of constraint layout for us. So I'm going to choose blueprint instead. So now it's going to show me the blueprint. If you want to see the design, you can just click on design. Or if you want to see the design plus blueprint, you can do that. But here I only want to see the blueprint. So now I created a connection from the right edge of this left button to the left edge of this right button. But here I want to also create a connection from the left edge of this right button to the right edge of this left button. So if I try to do that, Android Studio might not allow me to do that. I don't know, it might be a bug, it might be something wrong with the Android Studio. So this problem exists, and it exists for a very long time. I haven't been able to solve this problem using the design view. So there is something wrong with this design view here. But here we can solve the problem using the text. So that's why I always say writing XML codes is your best tool if you want to create dynamic layouts or UI, okay? You can't always rely on this design view because it's not gonna solve your problem, and you might end up being confused and being sorry about Android Studio. So just switch to the text tab and then just select the right button here. You can just select it in the preview if you want. And then here, just go ahead and create a connection from the left edge of this button to the right edge of this left button. So you can just select, or you can select the left button and choose a proper ID, because if you want to create the connections, you have to know the ID. You have to refer to the specific ID. So I just selected this left button and the ID is going to be left button, okay, and then select the right button here, and the ID is going to be right button. So now here, because I changed the IDs, it is showing me some errors. For example, I created a connection from this left button to the right button, so I have to change the ID of this button to right button here, so that the connection is created correctly. So here I want to show you something very interesting, because if you don't apply this principle in your layouts will look terrible and you won't be able to solve the UI problems. Well, so what is that thing that is interesting? Take a look at these constraints here. For example, we have the constraint bottom to bottom of. So it is kind of self-explanatory. We don't have to explain this one. Let's take a look at the second constraint that we have for this left button. We have constraint end. So what does this end mean actually? End refers to the end of that button. So the end, because in this case, we are using a left to right language, which is actually English. The end refers to the right, okay? We start from the left and we end at the right. So when it says constraint end, this end refers to the right edge of this left button here. And here it says to start off. So what does this start means? So again, because we are using a left to right language, which is English, the start means the left edge of this other layout, of this other view actually. So the left edge of this view here is this right button. The left edge is this one. So we have created a connection from the end of this left button to the start of this right button. So we don't have left or right anymore. Forget about those terms in the layout, because if you use them, your layouts will always be, there will be always a problem with your layouts. You won't be able to solve them just because of this little world, okay? It is kind of strange, it is weird, but this is the principle that you should apply in your layouts. Otherwise, you're gonna have problems. So this is very important. When I say end, here I mean the end of this left button, the right edge. And when I say start, here I mean the left edge of this right button. So end means right and start means left in left to right languages. And it is going to be reversed in right to left languages. So in right to left languages, right means start and left means end. So just keep that in mind. You can write it somewhere, you can tattoo it on your arm. Just remember that whenever you want to design a layout. So now that we have the constraint set up for this left button, let's go ahead and create a connection from the start of this right button to the end of this left button. So just tap on this right button on the preview, so it's gonna highlight this button code on the XML. So the connection that we are going to use here is going to be constraint start. Notice that I didn't say left. Constraint start to end of, and then @ plus ID / left button. So now these two buttons are centered horizontally inside this layout. When I say centered horizontally, I mean both of these buttons together are centered horizontally. So if you switch to the design tab, you can see these connections. But now I want to delete the margins because I don't need them. So just select this right button here and I delete the layout margin end and margin right. And I also delete the margins of this left button. Okay, so now that we have these constraints set up here for us, now make sure that the layout width and the layout height of your buttons are wrap content, because I don't want to determine the width and the height of my buttons by a fixed value. Okay, I want them to be dynamic. So let's go ahead and run our application and see how it looks on our device. So here it is, the layout, left button, right button, and the button at the bottom. So it looks good. If you want to see how it looks on other devices, you can go ahead and click on this device for preview and choose a device here. For example, I'm going to choose a 6-inch device. So this is how it looks. Let's change this one to design, and let's go ahead and change this one to, for example, a tablet, and see how it looks on a tablet. So let's choose another device. For example, let's choose a 10-inch tablet. So this is how it looks on a 10-inch tablet, and we can go ahead and choose other devices. So here it says generic phones and tablets, and you can choose a 4-inch screen. So it looks consistent across all devices. Now let's go ahead and use an image view and center it horizontally here, because I want to show you something about the image view that is necessary to know if you want to use image views in your layouts. So first we need an image. Just go ahead and open your web browser. So you can use the pixabay.com in order to download free images and royalty-free stock. So I'm going to search for Michael Jackson, and let's see what image is going to show me. So let's select one of these images. I'm going to choose this one, and let's download it. Just click on free download, and then you can use one of these resolutions. So the first one is okay for our application. So just click on download, and then the image is downloaded. So here you can see that there is a dash here in the name of this image. So it seems that the dash is not allowed if you want to add your images to your project. So let's go ahead and add this image to our project, and let's see what error Android Studio is going to show us, because I want to show you that if you do not name your images correctly according to the Android Studio rules, then you're going to have compile errors. So here it is, the image. I'm just gonna right click on it and then click on copy image, and let's go back to Android Studio. So here let's just drag, let's open the project pane and then app, res, right click on this drawable folder and click on paste. So choose the drawable instead of the drawable-v24, and then click on OK. So it's gonna show us the image. If you want to, you can change the name here, but I'm just gonna choose the default name and just click on OK. So if I try to run the application, let's see what happens. Now it says dash is not a valid file-based resource name character. File-based resource names must contain only lowercase a through z, numbers 0 through 9, or underscore. So these are the characters that are allowed if you want to use them in your image names. So open the drawable folder and right click on this image, Michael Jackson, and then you can just click on a reveal in Finder. So here you can rename the image. So I'm gonna choose MK. Okay, that's it. So if you just go back to Android Studio, you will see that the image name is actually changed to mk.jpg. Now if I try to run the application, there will be no compile errors. So hopefully that makes sense. Now let's go back to activity under alignment.xml, and let's drag an image view to our constraint layout here. And as the image, I'm going to choose MK. I'm going to select it and click on OK. So the image is added here. So now I'm going to choose, so you can see that the layout width and the height is wrap content, but let's go ahead and just position it here a little bit at the top. So let's create connections to the right, left, and to the top. Okay, so these are the connections that I created for this image view. And here for this image view, I want to use the scale type attribute that will determine how the image is going to be fit inside the image view. So just search for scale type, and here you can see that there are some values that we can choose. For example, if you click on this little triangle here, we can choose center inside. That will center this image inside this image view. We can choose fit start. You can see that the image now is at the left of this image view. We can have the fit end. We can have the center, and we can have the matrix. So this is how it looks if you choose matrix. We can have the fit XY. So it will completely fit the X and the high borders. And we have the fit center and we have the center crop. Okay, so for this image, I prefer fit center. So this is the attribute that you're going to use in most of your projects because you want your image to be a fit at the center of the image view. So here I want to show you how to use the guidelines in order to create the constraints. First of all, just select this image view and then let's go ahead and delete these constraints that we created here. So the top constraint is okay, but the left and the right constraints should be deleted. How we can delete them? Inside this attribute section, if you hover over this field little circle here, you can just click on it and delete the constraint. And you can also do the same for the right constraint here. Okay, so these constraints are now deleted. Now I want to add the guideline. So how I can add the guideline? So there is an icon here that says guidelines. If you click on it, you can see that we have add vertical guideline, add horizontal guideline, add vertical barrier, add horizontal barrier, add group. So let's choose this add vertical guideline here. If you click on it, it will be added to this component tree. So it is actually added to the layout. So in order to see it, we need to zoom in a little bit here. So just select this guideline here inside the component tree. So it is selected. And now I want to just drag this guideline to the right. If you hover over it, it will show you this handler and you can drag this guideline to the right. So let's just line up this guideline with the right button. And here it is showing me an absolute value. So I don't want this fixed value here from the left. So I want to change it to a %. So if you click on this little icon that is a lot like the play button, if you click on it, it will be changed to another position. So now from the right, it is 49. Again, this is just a fixed value. I don't want it. If I click on it again, now it is in %. So I chose 85% here as the guideline here. So now if I select this image view, I want to create a connection to the right of this guideline. Okay, so let me show you how it looks. First, let me just decrease the size, the width of this image view to 100 dp. Now I want to create a connection from the right edge of this image view to this guideline. Okay, now let's add another guideline. So just click on this icon for this guideline and then add another add vertical guideline. So this is the guideline 2. If you want to, you can change the ID of this guideline. So let's change it to, for example, right guideline, and click on yes. And the second one, let's change the ID to left guideline. Okay. Now again, let's change this guideline to %. Just click on it. I think you have to click on it 2 times to change it to a % value. So now it is at 6%. Now I'm gonna just drag it so that it lines up with the left button. And then let's create a connection from the left edge of this image view to this guideline that we have here. Okay, so it is kind of centered here, right? According to these left and right buttons. So now let's go ahead and test this layout on multiple devices. So let's zoom out a little bit and let's choose another device. Let's choose a 5-inch device. So this is how it looks on a 5-inch device. And you can see that the image goes up a little bit. So I don't like this distance to the top. But first, let's test this layout on other devices. So let's see how it looks on a 6-inch device. Okay, let's see, for example, on a tablet. Okay, so let's see other devices, for example, generic phones and tablets. Let's choose, for example, 4.7-inch device. So let's do something about this image here. Let's go ahead and let's create a connection from the bottom edge of this image view to the top of this left button. Okay, So as I do that, you can see that the image goes down a little bit here. So it is kind of centered here around this area. Now let's go ahead and see what happens on other devices. So it doesn't matter on which device we test this layout, the image will always be centered around this area. So this is good. I like this one. On a 6-inch device, again, the image is centered. Let's see what happens on a tablet. So again, the image is centered. So it looks good. And this button at the bottom, let's change it to match constraints. So it takes kind of the entire width. And now it looks better. So now let's go ahead and let's run the application and see how it looks. So this is how you create constraints using the guidelines. Guidelines are very important and they can help you to design better layouts and better UI. So this is how our UI looks like on this emulator. And we've got other guidelines that we can use. So here we have this, for example, add vertical barrier and add horizontal barrier. So you can add these other tools to your layout and see how you can use them to your advantage. So here, let's select this image view and you can see that the layout width and the height of this image view, the value is a hard-coded value, and that's something that we should avoid. So let's change the layout width to wrap content and the layout height to be a wrap content, okay? So it is now very large, okay? The height is very large. So let's change the height to match constraints, okay? So now it is better. And we can also change the layout width to be match constraint. So now it takes the entire distance between this left guideline and this right guideline. And here, if you want to, you can change the scale type of this image. So you can search for scale type and change this fit center to another value. For example, you can choose center crop, or you can choose center here, center inside. It might be a good value. So now it looks better. If you run the program, let's see what happens. Let's see what we are going to see now. Okay, it's now better.